want to start off by saying thank you all so much for this invitation to participate in this valuable conversation to bring awareness to opioid use and addiction and how it affects long-term recovery and also employment opportunities. My name is Ashley Shaw. I am the core director for Marshall Health, and core is creating opportunities for recovery employment. Our program spans along a 12 county region in West Virginia. And our main goal is to provide individuals with substance use disorder with access to just employment opportunities. And we also link them to education opportunities. It is our main goal and our mission to just be the hand that folks in recovery need after treatment and as they are recovering to link them back into the community. We are extremely focused on serving people and business. And by that, I mean, obviously, we integrate our services in the community to work with individuals with substance use disorder. But a large part of that is possible because we also partner with businesses in the community who we have identified who have a strong need in the community. And it's our goal to screen folks within our program to match them with employment opportunities in the community. And so I'm just thrilled to be able to participate in this conversation. It is a needed conversation, and it brings value to our communities when we're able to leverage people and opportunities to create success for our economies and our communities. And so if anyone is ever interested in making contact with CORE, people can always reach out to our email address, which is CORE, which is COREWV @marshall.edu. I do want to have a little bit of a conversation today around the topic of hope after recovery. You know, a lot of times folks only see the image of the person in active addiction, and rarely are we presented with images of what recovery looks like. I am here to be your witness today that there is hope after recovery and that treatment does work and that individuals can get back into the workforce and just be productive members of society. You know, through hope and recovery, we're able to link people back to purpose, passion, and structure. It is our motto at CORE that we connect people back to purpose, to finding what they're here to do, to explore what they're interested in, to find passion in what they do, but to also link them back to structure by having something every day to get up for and to shine and to be able to present yourself and be a productive member of your community. Through hope and recovery, we're able to identify skills that individuals have, what their interests are, and to build off of their previous work experience to connect them to employment opportunities within the community. You know, oftentimes people just see employment as the end all be all, or it's going to fix everything. And employment really is just a part of recovery, but it is an important piece that really gets people embedded and reintegrated back into the community so that they can experience restored lives. For our conversation today, I spent some time sort of thinking through, you know, if I had to give some key takeaways for employers to sort of think about as they're navigating, you know, reaching out to individuals with substance use disorder and providing opportunities for recovery employment. There were several things that sort of jumped out in my mind that I think are important to discuss and just to mention to employers because they can hold a key role, and they do hold a key role in providing that hope to individuals in recovery. And so I'm going to talk about 5 things that employers can do to really arm themselves to be able to provide that hope to this community. And the first thing I want to talk about is so very simple, but yet so important, and that is a change in perspective. Employers have to be willing to go out on a ledge just a little bit and have a change in perspective, to be able to challenge your previous misconceptions, to be able to challenge your bias, and then to say, you know, what can I learn from this? One thing that we challenge employers to do with CORE and through our partnership with so many businesses in our community is to first understand addiction as a disease and not to see it as a moral failing. Yes, we can agree that the first time is a time of choice, but with continued use, obviously addiction occurs. And so we encourage employers to change their perspective, to understand that addiction is a disease. And we'd also venture to say a part of that change in perspective means that you've got to change your language too. And so employers really have to look at and evaluate their culture, their workplace culture, and the language that they're using to ensure that it is not stigmatizing language, that it supports all people, and particularly individuals who are in recovery. Another thing that employers might think of when they think about changing their perspective or changing their language is, making that understanding that the reason why there's sometimes employment gaps and criminal history, sometimes that it's interrelated with addiction. It's just understanding that things happen, individuals run into situations. And so oftentimes employers will have to understand that this may be a part of an individual's past when they're working with substance use disorder. But that does not mean that that person doesn't have value and that they don't have skills that they bring to the table. So that's the first thing. The second thing that we encourage employers to do is educate yourself. And there's not enough education out there in the world today to really support this topic, but we encourage employers to educate their leadership and their managing supervisors about addiction as a disease. We encourage employers and we provide sources and resources to employers to help them understand addiction as a disease and appropriate ways really to just respond to this population while building their workforce. And there are several tools that we have found useful with CORE and as we've been working in our state, and one of those is the National Safety Council. The National Safety Council has developed an employer toolkit and an employer cost calculator that can be really beneficial to employers to really figure out how much is substance use costing their organization, but to also identify appropriate ways that they can respond to this so that they can provide that hope to individuals who are in recovery. And I always say, never forget your state chamber. Our West Virginia State Chamber has been a useful resource to us through this endeavor. And there are several initiatives all across the nation that state chambers have been involved with as a means to providing education to employers as they seek to develop recovery supportive workplaces. The third thing I'd like to bring to your attention is evaluate your existing policies and operations. And so you want to ask yourself a few questions as an employer to establish, is my workplace recovery supportive? Is there work that still needs to be done? And how can I go about doing that? And so as far as guidance, one thing that I always like to mention is employers should ask themselves, do you already have an existing written policy? It's not enough just to say we don't require this. It's very important to have an existing drug-free workplace policy. And so that sort of outlines to the employee and across the organization what the expectations are as it relates to your response to drug use and what you support within that organization. The second piece of evaluating your policies and procedures is making sure that your written policy aligns with your laws. You can't, as an employer, we know that it's very important to make sure that we align ourselves to just legal laws and authorities that exist. And so it's important to seek legal counsel when you're developing your drug-free workplace policy to make sure that it aligns with your laws. The other question that employers should ask is, do we apply this written policy consistently across the board? Employers have to make sure that they're being consistent with all employers and employees and making sure that they're following that written policy. That is a protection to not only the employee, but it's a protection to the employer. The other component is you want to make sure that you are reviewing and revising your policy regularly. At least once a year, employers and HR representatives should really sit down and have a look at that policy and ensure that it, number one, still meets the needs of the organization, that the leadership still stands behind what's in that policy, and then to make revisions based on issues that have presented themselves throughout the year. So again, take the time to evaluate your existing policy. And if you're one of those organizations that says, I don't even have a policy, please connect with CORE and we'll try to direct you to an entity that can assist you in getting your policy developed in your state. The other piece, number 4, is if you're just getting started and you just want to know, what can I do? I may not be able to do all of these things right now, but what can I do to help? I am a firm believer in that you don't have to do everything all at one time. So I encourage employers to make small changes first. Look around and see what you can do to support individuals in recovery. And some of those things can be just as small as allowing the employee time. If you have someone that you've hired who has substance use disorder, if that person needs time off to go to a meeting or to go to an appointment, have it, just provide that opportunity. Maybe it's an hour that they need. Be flexible in your scheduling to allow that. We ask that employers also consider, we've been made aware that some employers actually have just meetings on site for individuals with substance use disorder. Additionally, be aware of just resources that are available in your community, provided that someone does have a reoccurrence, that you can loop them back into the community for additional supports. Employers should also take a look at their health and wellness programs. If you provide different benefits and access to different wellness programs, this is a great opportunity to provide employees with resources, wellness programs that are available within the community. And so the 5th piece I've already sort of highlighted, but I don't want employers to negate the value of community treatment and recovery supports. We can't do this alone. It's going to take a village to get our communities back to where we want to see them, but we can provide that hope after recovery. So we find it very important that if you have individuals in your workforce that at some point have identified themselves as having an issue with addiction, or you hire someone who has an addiction, it's important in the event that there's a reoccurrence that you can loop them back into the community regarding treatment and other supports regarding treatment. It is so valuable to individuals in the community to just know that they have somewhere that they can go when additional supports are needed. The conversation then goes to, why is this important? Why do we even need to have this conversation? And I want to give you a couple of things here to think about. We're all at a point where we're trying to build a strong workforce. I don't know if your community looks like mine, but there are tons of jobs availability in our community right now, and there are not enough people who are willing to go back to work. This is an opportunity for an employer to build a safe and strong workforce for their organization. If an individual is in recovery, they're likely to be more loyal and more dedicated to your organization. They're going to be willing to go the extra mile just because they have the opportunity to get back into the community and be productive members of society. And they also have an increased work ethic. I think all of our employment specialists with CORE would agree with you that, a lot of times you will see folks that will go the extra mile for employers when they're given that opportunity. And I just say to employers, be the hope. You can be the hope. Employers can support whole person wellness. We're just not fragmented beings, and we shouldn't be treated as such. So employers, you can be the hope. You can support whole person wellness. There are many successful phases of recovery, and it's important that we change our perspective so that we can see that there is value to treatment and that there are many successful people who are in recovery with all sorts of skill sets, and they can bring that skill set to you and your organization. And lastly, this is your opportunity. you can build a strong, safe, and healthy workforce.